Okay, England-Australia in pool A at the Women's Rugby World Cup has finished. It's 47-7 to England. It was 19-7 at half-time. Now, Australia were the more desperate side. It actually did come down to points differential between Australia and the US after that 31-all draw they had in their last game. Now, Australia, the way they started the game was with that desperation. They knew that they had to either get a losing bonus point, a try bonus point, or win the game. They weren't guaranteed with going through. They could have had a heavy defeat. Now, in the end, points differentials got in their favour because the US had such a poor opening round match in the pool stage against England where they were just outclassed. Australia, much like the US, started very similar. And England did look sloppy. I'm going to be honest. England did not have the same intensity and focus that Australia did. And Australia took the lead after just 6 minutes from a rolling maul. Talakai with the try, the hooker. And that's after 6 minutes. Now Wood converts. And you're thinking England are looking nervy here. This is a potential upset in the making because Australia in the women's game have never beaten England. And so there's a potential for an upset here. And in the last two World Cups, they've been knocked out by England. So in the knockout stages. So the desperation from Australia was there early on. England very slow out the box, very sloppy, clunky in attack, lots of handling errors, penalty count, just not settling at all. However, after the Australia try, England do respond within 2 minutes. Jess Breach scores a try, but is that pass forward from Harrison? Zoe Harrison, is that pass forward? I'm going to say yes. No bias here. I would say yes, that pass is forward. They got away with one there. Why the TMO hasn't checked that, I don't know. Could they argue that Harrison's hands, the way it's at best it's a flat pass. I think that's a forward pass. I do. And considering they have a try chalked off for a knock-on later on, I think the TMO should have checked that, but it's not checked. It stands. Yes, they missed the conversion, so Australia still lead at this point. But I will say this: I think England get lucky with their opening try, which would have summed up their first half sloppy. Now, the cocaine try that is disallowed is the correct decision. However, I wasn't aware this law had changed, where if there was a bit of uncertainty about a try being scored for whatever reason, if you take that conversion, whether you score or miss it, and then you get back to the halfway line and the opposition restart play quickly, they can't go back and check it. Now, the TMO, when Harrison's lining up the conversion, she's missed the conversion, they're going back to take the resulting kickoff. And then suddenly the TMO tells the referee we've got to check here for a potential knock-on. That should have been done quicker. Harrison's had about, I think it's a minute on the shot clock to line up the conversion and take it. That should have been done quicker. It's the right decision. They had an advantage for a penalty for side entry on the maul. What they then do from the resulting line-out, which should have been a carbon copy of what they've just done, get it in, recycle the ball, drive it. They completely cock that up. And, they had an opportunity there to just play themselves into the game. And it takes them a further, 12 minutes to finally play themselves into the game. Because Australia are dominating the possession at this point. They've had more entries into England's 22 and Australia are on top. Now, they will get 2 tries before half-time from Ward and Kabaya on 33 and 39 minutes, and Harrison would convert both of them. And you could see in that last 10 minutes of the first half, England finally clicked into gear a little bit. They were still making sloppy errors and still not playing at their best, but Australia just had nothing left to give at that point. Australia looked like they'd given everything emotionally and physically in that first 30 minutes, and they just had nothing left to hold out the England onslaught. So it's 19-7 at half-time, but on the scoreboard and with how the first half was played, Australia are still in the game at this point. England get the bonus point try after just 4 minutes into the second half from Kabaya getting her second try. And then we see the first of 2 yellow cards. Now, initially, when the check goes upstairs, it's for actually cynical foul play and collapsing them all. But then they see in the next phase after the ball comes out, when England recycle, that there is a high tackle in there on an England player. And Maleka, the fly half, sent for 10 minutes. Now, I will discuss both yellow cards because they're both almost carbon copies in tackle technique, being wrong and head clashes, which, in my opinion, if it's a head-on-head contact, I think that's no player wants to get their head smashed in, a defender or attacker. So for me, head-on-head contact should never be a red card. It should always be a yellow card. It's poor tackle technique, but it's accidental. There's no intent to deliberately injure the player, but they always say you've got to get lower. And sometimes when it's a big prop charging down the fly-offs channel, I mean, if you get low, you're going to get yourself knocked out anyway by smashing into a knee or a hip or a thigh, and you're going to get with the letter of the law as it is now, it's going to be a yellow all day long. Even if it's slightly bad technique or accidental head clash. With the way World Rugby's gone down this rabbit hole now, you're not going to get head contact out of the game. I think World Rugby are very naive and utopian in that fact. But it's a yellow, and in the resulting period of the yellow card, Clifford gets 2 tries on 54 and 58 minutes, and the game's gone. By that point, though, I think after that first try in the second half, I mean, Australia are clinging on, but it's all defence now. England have now settled into the game a bit better. While still not playing at their best, they played their way into the game now. They've survived the wobbly first half where Australia could have upset them a little bit. And then Byrne gets her try in 65 minutes. And then Byrne gets a yellow card for a similar high tackle. And that's on 71 minutes. England finished with 14 players. Australia couldn't get a single point. Apart from their try early on, Australia, well, they had a lot of entries into England's 22 in the first half. Second half, they didn't even get close to that 22 on a regular enough basis. And while England get a comfortable win on the scoreline, they didn't play very well. And there's a glimmer of hope for like your Canadas and your New Zealands, potentially your South Africas and your Frances as well. England didn't look like favourites and an unbeaten team since the last World Cup. The only team that's come close to England since the World Cup final 3 years ago is Canada. They are the 2 best teams in the world right now, and both of them in both their games have looked shaky today. But Australia gave everything in that first half, and then when England had settled, they still weren't playing well. That second half, England were much improved, but at the same time, well off their best. But there was times against the US where England looked a little bit sloppy and a bit clunky, and I think they made too many changes in the Samoa game as well, which may have contributed, I think, to this mistimed performance and misfiring performance. I think coaches need to be a little bit careful with how they use their squad rotation. I do think England made too many changes against Samoa, which I think disrupted a bit of momentum and continuity a little bit. Yes, it's a squad game, but you want to have your strongest, fittest available starting 50. Maybe make some changes on the bench, potentially, with some of your bench players and rotate some of your bench squad. But you basically want your strongest 15 to start the game. And yes, you want bench players potentially to put their hand up and try and get into that starting 15. But barring injury or suspension, you want your strongest lineup out there and your strongest possible bench. I think too many changes were made in the Samoa game, which I think also impacted this game and a bit of the continuity and momentum. Australia have made less changes to their starting lineup in their 3 games. Same with the US, they've made less changes to their starting lineup. There'll be some players that haven't got any minutes in this World Cup. Canada have been pretty stable with their selection, barring injury, and you know they've been pretty. They've got a lot of depth in their squad, but they've actually been pretty stable in their selection. They've pretty much gone with their strongest available 23, I think, is a match day squad that they can. New Zealand have made a lot of changes in their 2 games so far, so it's a balancing act. But I do think England must have to improve and play better, because now the opposition gets stiffer and gets tougher. And Australia have got a tough game against Canada. England now have a tough game against Scotland. And Scotland did challenge Canada today and made Canada uncomfortable. And Canada are seen as joint favourites with England because they've got the second best record in the last 2 to 3 years. England are the best side since the last World Cup. Canada are the second best side since the last World Cup. And New Zealand don't look as formidable as they did at the last World Cup. So you can see how it's sort of the top teams are shaking themselves down and getting through. But England have to improve. Same with Canada. I think they both have to improve on the performances they put in today. But there we go. 47-7. A misfiring, mistimed performance from England. Australia, they have to be proud with the way they attacked that first half. But then they lost their way and then they got tired. And once England settled, Australia were second best by some margin. But that was a bigger victory for England than I was expecting as well. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. And I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.